Guys, to part 2 of this running trains on advanced schedules. So this video we're going to look at running the schedule back from Barham to Belair Yard, and stay around to the end of the video to see how I use TrainController to deal with my virtual wagons on the Fallen Dog Railway. So let's get started. Okay guys, now we've got our train that has come in from Belair Yard and has finished its schedule on BS1. So you can see the variable was set up there, Barham 1, so that refers back to the wagon set. So I've got our locomotive and our real rake of wagons sitting on BS1 here. So we've had to build a few other little bits and pieces into the system for a bit of collision avoidance. I don't run any detectors or resistors on any of my wagons. I've found them to be quite problematic. So we built other little mechanisms in place to protect the shunter and all and sundry whilst the station was shunting from the automatic schedules. So you'll see this lock during shunting. What this actually does is, I'll show you. So it turns on. You'll notice a little icon comes up here. So what that actually does back on the main board, just quickly, you'll see that there. So what that actually represents is one of these icons up here, which is a lock to the left. So lock the entry of the blocks of trains running from the top left or left top. It's just a little protection mechanism, so all my traffic comes in over the top to its various tracks. And what we've also done is it's locked this point out, so we're protecting, basically what that does, that protects the back of the train. So any schedules that might come in around the back here, so we've got a few commuter train schedules that might use either this track and this track. They can't actually fulfill their schedule prerequisites, so they'll just sit there until something's shunted out. Okay, so we've uncoupled the locomotive from the virtual wagons. What you do at this point in time, our operators will just shunt out various wagons making up the train. Alright, so now what we're going to do is now send that train back to Belair Yard. So this is where this little interface or panel comes into its own. So what we found is a few times we set trains off on their schedules and we hadn't uncoupled them. It was just like an oversight of one of my operators who hadn't, used TrainController a lot. So what we ended up doing is making a prerequisite that this button actually needs to be in the coupled position. Now you'll see what that actually does is now couples it back up virtually within TrainController. So in one of my previous videos I sort of briefly touched on when we talked about the central control panel, what the dispatcher will look at. Now I'll go through these icons very, very quickly. So the X means that this schedule, Barham 1 and Barham 2, is on an automatic schedule to go back to Belair Yard. So if an operator was just to click that button, it would just go on an automatic schedule back to Belair Yard track number 2. However, if a dispatcher decides in consultation with the operator that we're going to run a manual schedule back, so manual being it's controlled with the hand controller but still under the collision avoidance of red signals and the like. So you can see this little variable was set up here, contact dispatcher if manual control is needed. So all that means is, so if we go back to the central control panel quickly, you'll see this little icon here. So what that actually means is, so currently if it's on C, it means the schedules are under control of the central control panel. So then I can go L for local. So that means we can now set manual schedules via the operator on this panel. So you can see it comes up with M's, which means that it's on a manual schedule. So now we've set it to manual, you can see that this variable has now gone away. So we've obviously contacted the dispatcher. They've allowed the use of the manual control. Now, I'd be very interested in what people think of that very system. So if you want to comment below, my question would be, would you find the automatic and manual schedules, the way I've set it up, useful on your layout, and how you might use it? I'll be very interested. So just pop that in the comments below. I'll be very interested to see what people think of that scheme. Now, as for all my schedules, get started by the extended accessories switches we got here. The arrow pointing to the right is the return, arrow pointing to the left is it coming out from Belair Yard. So what we'll do, we'll set the schedule going. Now at this point you can see this route control. So I briefly touched that on one of my other videos regarding how this panel is set up. So this is a very visual indicator that now that route has now been set. So if any other trains are sitting here ready to go out under manual control, the operator can look and it's all ready to go. You'll see this little flashing icon here. So that also tells the operator at Barham there that this train needs to be controlled manually. As soon as that train starts moving, we've got a little flagman that sets up that tells us it's moving, and that indicator will stop. And just moving across, obviously this is another variable bit like this. We now I know that Barham 1 virtual car set is in BS1, the other one's in the virtual yard. Now this is a cool little other variable we put in that's really useful when trains are coming from Belair Yard up and the operator's physically standing at Barham ready to take control of that locomotive, particularly if it's a manual schedule. It'll tell us which one it is. So it's the DCC address and the type of locomotive that is hauling that. Okay, Barham number 1, it's pulling through Lower Mitcham station now. Does slow down here a little bit because it can get quite busy here at times when I've run the other schedules. Now making its way back into Belair Yard. So its destination track at this point in time will be Belair Yard number 2. Initially I had set this up. It will actually transverse through to here, and the stopping section's all in here. So there's various locks we had to put on this turnout here, so that wasn't used in any other schedule at that point in time. So like the other end, I've got you'll see on the footage that little infrared towers there that we've set up. Like we've got in Barham, we've got the uncoupling switch here. Okay, now the train has physically stopped within this block. Now, as I explained just before, the locomotive actually sits in here. We struggled to actually represent that within TrainController. So this is what this indicator here is. That means that stop indicator's showing that there's actually something occupied in there. So with that, what we do to get the physical wagons uncoupled, all we do to get the KD dance happening is I click on the uncoupling button there. You'll see that it now turns green, and it goes through its process of reversing up, taking the slack off. The magnet has now automatically turned on. It's the Acadia electromagnet that's controlled there. And now you can see that little upwards red arrow there, which indicates that the train has physically uncoupled from the rest of the train. Okay, now what we need to do is put what we call the whole locomotive away back into the turntable. So how that is done is with this little interface here with what says freight engine. So this little arrow to the right actually denotes what actually happens with it. So we call it park incoming engine. So obviously we have two incoming tracks. So trains coming from this way on the BY1, trains coming this way on BY2. So we had to denote which schedule started. Obviously there's various schedules that we got going. So we did this by this little button here. So that's on in the conditions tab. So it needs to be on track number 2 in. So it's just a matter of pressing, and you'll see that schedule now starts. So what it'll do, it'll come into here, over the top to BY3 through, and it'll park its way in. Alright, you can see that what the train's done, it's come through into this track here. Now we're able to set up a little a schedule that obviously changed directions. It took a little bit of thought and by the team in MRT here. So at this point the train will transverse over BY3 towards the turntable. Now I haven't showed you how it goes back to the turntable for the interest of keeping this video as short as possible. Okay, that's the end of this part number 2. So in the next video what we'll look at is, you can see that we've got the Barham number 1 there, the virtual wagon. So on the real layout, obviously we're going to have the whole rake of wagons sitting there that need to be shunted out. Now it's not going to be a video on how to shunt it, because there's a myriad of ways of doing that, and people can work that out for themselves, unless it's something that might interest people. If it is, put it in the comments below, and we might be able to look at doing a video how I'd shunt it out physically in conjunction with how I'd use TrainController to do that. So yeah, the next video, part number 3, will be how we get rid of this wagon here within TrainController and put it back to its virtual staging yard. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Okay guys, make sure you comment below. Make sure you click that little bell icon to be advised of upcoming videos. Give it a thumbs up. Share with all your mates and all that other good stuff. Make sure you go to my website, www.modellrailroadtechniques.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.